All right, so for this week, we're looking at Southeast Asian American socio-economic development and integration. And one of the concepts that we will explore this week and think about critically is this notion of the model minority, Asian Americans as a model minority. The model minority is a racialized stereotype. It's a positive stereotype that says Asian Americans do well in school, become professionals, earn good money, and they are smart, good in science, good in math. And so you might think it's a good thing, but really it has been used in a very negative way, both on the macro level and on the micro level. So the history of the model minority image stereotype comes about after World War II. A decade after World War II, a sociologist by the name of William Peterson at UC Berkeley wanted to examine how Japanese American are doing after World War II because they face intense racism and discrimination and anti-Japanese sentiment, the pinnacle of which was the internment during World War II. So how are they doing? And what he noted was that within one generation after World War II, Japanese Americans were graduating from college and were becoming professionals. And he says that it is because of Japanese cultural value, namely Confucianism, and its emphasis on education as well as on family and on sacrifices that the parents would make in order for the kids to do well in school. Now, this all sounds very good, but the reverse of that is that cultures that don't do this have, cultures that don't focus on family and don't focus on education are to blame for not succeeding in education and in the economy. So, by extension, because the culture is to blame, that means that American society is a merit-based society that is equal, and everyone has an equal level playing field. And we know from ethnic studies that this is just not the case. There's a long historical legacy of discrimination and of racism, and it is not that has still not been resolved for African Americans or for Latinos and for the indigenous Native American population. So, 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 so the model minority stereotype for Asian American has been used as a weapon to put down and continue the oppression of Latinos, Blacks, and Native American Indians because it says that Asians can do well. That means that America is a fair society, a merit-based society. Therefore, there's something wrong with your culture for you not to do well. And and this is harmful for Southeast Asian Americans because Southeast Asian Americans, for example, Cambodian, some Hmong and Lao group, have not done well economically or within the realm of education because they arrived in the early 1980s as refugees from the Vietnam War, and as such, there was limited funding and for resettlement and resettlement resources, and they were placed in urban ghettos. So what you had is you had a creation of a cycle of Southeast Asian American youth, Cambodian, Hmong, and Laotian, being disenfranchised, and it leads to gang involvement. It leads to being high school dropouts, and because Asian Americans are viewed as a model minority, um, that that group of Asian Americans who need help are not getting it. Okay, so and so for this week, you're looking at the links between education and economic success. And we'll see that part of the reason why some Southeast Asian American communities, and here I'm looking in particular to Cambodian donut shops, but we can also extend it to Vietnamese nail salons, etc., etc. Uh, why they would go into small business, right? And become small business owners, not because they want to do this, but it's because they have no other choice but to do this because of language issues, ESL issues. And so the question for us is whether or not that represents being a model minority as well. By the strict definition, the answer would be no, because the model minority does well in school, that leads to a professional career, does not do well in school or has no education, and then becomes an uh, economically self-employed. All right, so there's a lot of things to think about this week in terms of Southeast Asian Americans and socioeconomic integration.